Hi, I'm Autumn Durald Arkapaw, and I'm the cinematographer of Sinners. Ryan sent me the script for Sinners. I didn't know anything about it, to be honest. I think I knew it was a period piece. I knew he wanted to shoot on 16 millimeter. I knew that we were scouting places in the South, like New Orleans or Mississippi. And he sent it to me, and I read it the night before I started shooting The Last Showgirl. And I was in Vegas, and he emailed me, and he's like, I'm sending you the script, sis. Check it out. And so I read it that night, and I was just blown away because, if you don't know anything about the storyline and you read something like that, that's so unique. It's the first time we've seen that type of character in a film, in that kind of ensemble, in that kind of period. So it blew me away. And I sent him an email, a very long email. I just, kind of unloaded all my thoughts of how it made me feel and visual stuff that popped out and what I liked about it. He had a really great time shooting with our good friend Rachel Morrison on Fruitvale Station with the Super 16 format. It was something he wanted to kind of get back into and had envisioned this being, kind of a down and dirty shoot where it would have this grit, and it was a good way to get in there and do something with our family of filmmakers. So he actually ended up buying a 16 package that my AC built it out for him. So we were envisioning that was the format, and then I was shooting The Last Showgirl on 16, and I had Panavision make me some lenses for that picture. And so it was, it was very much after reading the script in my mind, envisioning it in that format. And it started to kind of progress as we had more conversations with the visual effects supervisor because of the twinning aspect in the film and the gate weave that you would get kind of with using the 16 millimeter cameras. So the 35 format has a more stable gate and is just more friendly for the kind of work we had to do. So we transitioned to thinking about the movie in 35. And then Ryan got a call from the studio asking if we had talked about large format. And that caused him to kind of, just open his mind up more. And so he gave me a call right after that, and he's like, let's kind of go out there and test and see what's out there, and let me know your thoughts, and what about the Hateful Eight format, because he was interested in showcasing the landscape in that 2:7:6 ratio in order to see just, the vastness of it. And he thought it would be appropriate for the story, but also for that horizon in the South, how much the horizon is important in the storytelling. So we had that conversation on the phone, and I hit the ground running afterwards. I called Photochem, Andrew Oren there, and I said, do you have any dailies or clips of Hateful Eight, and anything else you could show us in 70 millimeter would be great. And, films that were shot 65, and then we would watch the 70 prints. So he put together a little menu of stuff, and Ryan was in town for the day, and we went and looked at this stuff, and it was beautiful. And, he got very excited and inspired. And so we set up a test. Something he wanted to do was take these formats and take them out to the desert. And so we went to Lancaster. We put together this shoot, and we shot IMAX 35 and 65, and then we screened those tests at Photochem and at Playa, the headquarters of IMAX. We screened 70 prints of our 2:7:6 65 5 per format, and then we screened our 70 prints at Playa of our IMAX 15 per format. And to be honest, after you kind of see what you created and a print of it, you kind of can't go back. You can't unsee that stuff. So it was fun because I could tell after we saw that there was no going back. The scene that we're going to talk about is the first time you would see Remick. This scene actually opens the script. And I remember when I read it, I was blown away because I'm like, where did he come up with this stuff? And I remember asking him later, where he came up with it. And he's very good at just writing things that just jump off the page and get people excited. And that comes from kind of his love of cinema and being in the theater. So it opened the script, and in the editing process, he ended up with our awesome editor, Michael Shaver. He ended up kind of taking that and putting it, further down in the timeline, but it did originally come first in the script. So it's about Remick's kind of entrance into the film and trying to approach this kind of desolate farmhouse where he meets these two farmers, and he is trying to get in the house and take cover because he's claiming to be chased by some Choctaw.
Back up.
Yeah, I gotta help. I thought I could trust them, but they tried to kill me.
It was important for Ryan that you kind of give a hint at the fact that he can fly, right? So if you think about it as seeing that first, Jack was on a box. He jumped off the box, and we did it a few times to get it right because Ryan wanted it, to look a certain way because you're close to camera, actors close to camera, and, you want it to feel like they're jumping from somewhere higher, right? But it's actually, he's jumping from an apple box. It just hints at the fact that maybe he's flying. It's written in a way that kind of like you have these baby steps to figuring out who he is and what powers he has. It was more about execution on the day and making sure that that looked very powerful, because I think that was very important to Ryan, that it was a really grand entrance for Remick. I mean, a scene like that, you're always going to have to organize it really well with all departments because it's magic hour, right? It's sunset and then it's the blue hour after sunset. So you can't shoot a scene like that in that perfect time, right? You'd have to do it over a few days. So luckily we had 2 days to shoot it. We shot it for 1 day and then we went back to complete some work, which allowed us more time to get in camera. And it's really about the weather. You can get very unlucky in places like, New Orleans, because really strong weather can come in and kind of take your blue skies away from you. So those 2 days we shot that, we were very lucky to get sunny days, because in the script it's important to see the sun break the horizon and what that means for the storytelling. When I do VFX, I always make sure there's a reference in the camera, because if you're going to be doing some sky replacement or trying to match other shots that were shot earlier in the day, you always want to give VFX a reference of what it should look like in camera. There are shots in the sequence that the Choctaw come and they're looking and watching the sunset drop. Those are all in camera. Beautiful shots. Actually, the IMAX camera jammed right before we were about to shoot that one shot of him looking at the sun on the horse, and you see over his shoulder and you see the sun dropping. So that's for real. We fixed the jam and we literally rolled right before it kind of, set. So VFX, what they do is they're able to do some sky replacement in order to match and make sure that sequence is all consistent, because it's a very long sequence that all has to be at that, within like 10 minutes of when the sun's setting. We always work with VFX like that. It's very important to Ryan and myself that, the images feel real and that nothing takes you out, even though there is VFX. And I think, shooting this type of format, you want the format to sing and you want as much as you can to be in camera. So it was I think that whole sequence was very complex as far as scheduling and making sure that we got that time of day. And, you have to do the shots inside looking out and outside looking in, which can be time consuming. And you also have to remember it's IMAX, so it's not a sync sound camera. So Ryan had lots of discussions with the actors about, being okay with shooting this kind of dialogue heavy scene with a very, very loud camera. And the camera is very close to their faces and can be very loud. So you don't want to project over the camera, because that'd be a telltale sign of having that, there. So they all did such a beautiful job, and, they did ADR afterwards. We had cameras on cranes, and there's a lot of kind of moving shots like an old Western, and being able to kind of track with the horses. And it's a beautiful scene. I'm kind of most proud of that scene, I think, because it's something that you watch after the fact and you were a part of it, but it feels like you're watching an old movie. The most interesting part of that sequence is originally we envisioned it being on our anamorphic 2.7.6 format because we knew there was a lot of dialogue, but then Ryan decided to change it to IMAX, which was, I think, the best decision, because I can't really see that sequence being not in IMAX. And that was something that he did and spoke with the actors about. So we had IMAX camera out there, and we used two lenses, the 50mm and the 80mm Panavision IMAX lenses that were created for Christopher Nolan and Hoyte. I prefer Panavision glass, and Ryan was okay with kind of having those two focals throughout the film in order to tell our story. So obviously our wides are on the 50, and then our close-up work is on the 80. The 80 is a very beautiful lens, and very shallow depth of field. And so for all my focus pullers, my A and B focus puller, it's very hard work to do that type of shooting. And I shoot wide open. So yeah, I'm very proud of that scene. Everyone did a fantastic job. I've worked with this team before. We always create these environments that feel very real and textured, and there's so many layers. So I think when I walk into the space, having that kind of like way of taking her down the hallway and it being very mysterious, and having it be a little lower so you can see the light kicking up on the ceiling, like all of these things all these layers are so exciting, inspiring. So when I go into these spaces, it's very easy to know where the camera should be, at least for me. It's very felt. And I tend to center punch everything. So what's great about the IMAX format and being able to transition ratios is, I'm keeping most things in the center of frame. So when they have to be cropped for the 276 version that most audiences will see, you don't have to do too much repositioning. I find that, the frames speak more to me when things are kind of grounded in the center. The hero of the frame is the actor, and so what's important I tend to put in the center. I think that lens, using the 80 for the close-ups and the 50 for the wides, made a lot of sense. And I think the shooting in the scene is beautiful because it's also very economic. Every shot has a purpose. We set up the B camera on the crane to get the Choctaw walking out of the truck and up to the front door. And then once he was there, we were able to kind of cover and get our close-up work because we had very limited time to get that scene facing out. And so all of that stuff, in the moment, makes a lot of sense. And the beautiful costumes and the landscape. We actually found that landscape, and Hannah built the farmhouse on that. And, we went there, and it's important that it's orientated in the right position for the sun to set, for all the storytelling, and to see kind of them go away. And Ryan had that thought in his mind when he was writing it. So in prep, we found the right place in order to get all of those shots to tell that story. So that was really lovely to be able to find that location and have her build it out perfectly from scratch. It's my second time around with this team, and we work very well together, and we're able to kind of elevate each other's department all the time. We're always trying to inspire each other and, be able to do justice to what Ryan writes on the page, because he's probably one of the most inspiring people you'll ever be around. So day to day, you're really excited about the images you're creating. For me, it's always I want to make the perfect image for what he wrote on the page, essentially.